Alright, so in these videos I'm going to talk about two things which make for good documents. That is coherence and cohesion. So the first one is cohesion. If you think of adhesive, what does it do? It glues things together. And cohesion means that a document or a passage has been glued together properly. So different languages glue things together in different ways. In English we've got words like first, da 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 da, second, da 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 da, third, and we've got words like furthermore, therefore, and we've even got words like however, but, and we've got things we can do. We can replace words with other words. We can say, my sister's very pretty, she lives in London, where the word she links back to my sister. In other languages, you can't do that. Other languages are quite happy to have fewer kind of markers that give you this sense of cohesion, and they will just list the same thing again and again and again and again, or they just kind of expect the reader to sort of figure it out from a big jumble of text. And that's, unfortunately for us, that's how Chinese works. There's not really much in the way of cohesion in Chinese documents. So when you're translating Chinese to English, one of the things you have to do is add cohesive markers. Yes, you can understand a few sentences if they're not cohesive, but if you start to read a few paragraphs and there's no cohesion, you will start to get a headache, you will start losing the thread. Readers of English expect words like and, therefore, and but to kind of guide you through the text. So even though it's not really adding anything specifically to the meaning, these markers, these words that are used as markers, and sometimes those words can have a dual function. They can direct you to another bit of text and they can add some extra context or something, right? But English requires them. English readers require them quite a lot. Languages like Arabic are much more repetitive, don't need them. Chinese hardly ever uses them. In fact, Chinese frequently uses them wrongly. I say wrongly, it's not wrong. You speak the way you speak, that's correct. But for example, da'ng, which means and so on, is often used at the end of a list where there are no more items. It just means and so on, meaning and finished. Now, to an English ear, that's ridiculous, right? You don't say dung, you don't say and more at the end. If there's three things, you finish and say full stop. But in Chinese, you could list the three things and say dung. Kind of leaves this sense of openness in case we think of any more, or it just tells you that this was a list and the list is finished. So yeah, English readers are not tolerant for that, so we need different amounts of cohesion. You need to add meaning in, you need to add cohesive devices in. And Chinese translators going the other way into Chinese, they spend half their time removing words like therefore and but. Of course they do use them, but just far, far less frequently. So that's cohesion, and if you think of glue, adhesive is gluing words. The next one is coherence. If you think of someone who is incoherent, I went to Harrods yesterday. The shop was very pretty. Now, if you know that Harrods is a shop, you will know what I'm saying. I'm saying Harrods is very pretty. But if you don't know that Harrods is a shop, that those two sentences feel and will seem unrelated. So that's what we call coherence. Coherence is a cultural thing. It's not about words pointing and telling you anything. It's your kind of shared knowledge. You're drawing on this shared knowledge. And I know that the reader will know that Harrods is a shop, and that therefore they will understand I'm talking about the shop. But when you're translating, the readers may not have that shared knowledge, right? In fact, they very seldom. For Chinese, you know, they never do. So we need to come up with strategies to get away with that and to make sure that readers understand. Oh, Harrods. My sister went to the shop Harrods yesterday. It is a really beautiful store. Maybe put it that way. And then, okay, it must be the name of a shop. So again, a couple of sentences without any coherence aren't going to kill the reader. But after a few paragraphs, you're going to get very dizzy and confused, and you're going to lose the thread, and it's what we call incoherent text. So with cohesion and coherence, even if you translate every word on the page, that does not mean you will have a cohesive text, and it does not mean you will have a coherent text. If you're working into a second language, like when I translate into Chinese, the best I can do, the best, is quote unquote accurate. I can't produce a coherent or a cohesive text in a second language. It's just too hard. There's so much going on. This kind of shared cultural understanding, expectation of when you're going to need to start lists, put the word but, put the word and, to use a word like furthermore. These are deep cultural things that you can't just look up in grammar guides, or uh, English professors won't be able to tell you how to do it. You have to know. It has to kind of come from your gut understanding of the language. That's the difference with a native speaker. When I translate into English, I can then add in the markers I need or change the words to make it coherent, and I can change the words to make it cohesive. So, two things you need to do above just a kind of accurate translation. So when clients say to you, "Oh, please can you translate this accurately?" I always kind of snigger and think, "Well, what do you mean by accurate? Do you want all the words translated, or do you want it to be something that someone can actually read in their own language without having to get a headache and take 4 Panadol afterwards?" So coherence and cohesion are a deeper kind of thing than just choosing equivalent words, and they are one of the, in my view, the most skilled aspects. And as a reviewer, it's one of the things to look out for. If you do translate into a second language, you almost impossible that you're going to add them in, which is why we always say work in your first language. Um, but yeah, it can be very, very hard. There's a whole bunch of strategies. I'm going to do videos on some of the strategies in future, but coherence and cohesion. All right, thank you.